Hi-ho, Drinkerinos. It's the Idaho Booze Podcast with me, Steve Kuntz. On today's very special episode of the show, we are doing a whole show about Boise's biggest festival. That's right, Treefort Musicfest is here. It's this week, and we are celebrating it here on the pod with, a little bit of beer talk, I think. This year's festival features tons of amazing bands, cool venues, and just awful hats. Just terrible hats. But no matter. We're talking about all the booze of Treefort. On today's pod, we have the brewers of the official Treefort beer, Bert's Brewing, on to talk about how such a young group of up-and-comer brewers were able to pry the prize away from Mother Earth of the official beer of the festival. Unbelievable. Plus, we'll have David Roberts, Dr. Bitter Creek himself. He's the king of Alefort. He's going to be on to talk about all the fun new things going on at the frothiest fort of them all. All that, plus I'll give you a sneak preview of the bands, as well as I can. And for all of you visitors out there, a breakdown of downtown. It's our first annual Treefort Music Fest show on this week's Idaho Booze Podcast. It's time for the Warren Reserve Cocktail of the Week. And you'll see we're not at the bar this week. We are doing some construction down there, some renovating. We're getting some work done, so couldn't do it at the bar, but we'll be right back at the bar next time. This week's Warren Reserve Cocktail of the Week is the Hemingway Daiquiri. This is 2 ounces of white rum, 3/4 ounce of lime juice, 1/2 ounce of grapefruit, 2 bar spoons of maraschino liqueur, or about 1/4 ounce of brandy. If you want to do it, maybe 1/3 ounce. This is also going to have a 1/4 ounce of aged rum that you can put in there. That's optional. And then a lime wheel, grapefruit wheel for garnish. And of course, Warren Reserve Emmett Cherry Bitters. So the first thing you want to do is you want to chill that coupe. Make sure that thing goes in the freezer for at least 10 minutes before you make your drink. Add 2 dashes of Emmett Cherry Bitters to your shaker, along with some ice and some white rum, that aged rum, maraschino liqueur, or brandy if you want, grapefruit juice, and lime juice. Throw that all in the shaker with some ice and shake that until you can until you can't even really touch the shaker anymore. It's so cold. That's how much shaking we want to do for this one. It's a daiquiri. It's supposed to be cold. Then go ahead and take your coupe out, pour your daiquiri. I would strain that bad boy into the coupe, garnish it with a lime or grapefruit wheel, and there you have it. It's the Hemingway Daiquiri, and that is this week's Warren Reserve Cocktail of the Week, brought to us by Warren Reserve. And if you want to get these amazing Emmett Cherry Bitters or any of these other ones, I've got the orange one right here. I also think I have the West 509. This is my favorite one. If you want to get any of these bitters for yourself or for your bar, just head on over to warrenreserve.com. Use my promo code Idaho Booze 25, and that's going to get you 15% off anything on the website as long as you spend $40, and you're going to spend $40 because you're buying bitters and syrups and all sorts of wonderful cocktail things. So make sure you head on over to warrenreserve.com. Use my promo code Idaho Booze 25. Save yourself 15% from Warren Reserve and the Idaho Booze Podcast. The Idaho Booze Podcast is brought to you by Warren Reserve Cocktail Company, with bitters and cocktail syrups made right here in the Gem State. You would expect a little dash of home, right? With Emmett Cherry Bitters, you get just that. Each dash of Emmett Cherry Bitters tastes just like the real thing because it is made from real Emmett cherries. Add a couple dashes to an old-fashioned, vodka martini, or Manhattan to give your cocktail the authentic taste of the Gem State. Get Emmett Cherry Bitters at warrenreserve.com, and don't forget to use my promo code Idaho Booze 25 at checkout to get 15% off any order over $40. That's Idaho Booze 25 at checkout. Give your cocktails a taste of Idaho with Warren Reserve Bitters at warrenreserve.com. Welcome back to the show. I'm Steve Kuntz. This is the Idaho Booze Podcast, and this is our first annual Treefort Music Fest edition of the show. Very happy to be able to share some Treefort knowledge with y'all, as much as I can anyway. I'm not what you would call a seasoned Treeforter. I've been one time, I think 2 times maybe, with a wristband. I used to have to work at Alefort all the time, so we're going to talk about that later. This is just about Treefort. So one of the things with Treefort, when we kind of did it all out, we got wristbands, my wife and I, we got wristbands and did the whole thing, was sort of finding little places to get away. Like, not like the forts are amazing. I mean, all the forts are a lot of fun. All the venues are super cool. And I think they're going to be even better this year, especially with the addition of the Treefort Music Hall and the lounge that's down there, the hip hop lounge or hip lounge, whatever it's called. Anyway, they're going to be down there. But one of the things my wife and I found was, like, if we could get off the beaten path, like for a meal or whatever it is we want to do. And so since I know downtown Boise pretty well, I'm going to tell all of you people that are new to downtown Boise where to go. So if you're downtown, or if you're in Bodo, or if you're anywhere near kind of away from the main stage, but even like downtown-ish, Bodo, like I'm saying, like in that area of downtown, PF Chang's or Liquid Lounge in Bodo. Those places are awesome to get away from everything. PF Chang's, amazing food, great drinks, sweet bar. You're going to love going there. And then Liquid Lounge is just, or any of those places, you could go to Liquid. You could go to the one that's downstairs that I can't remember the name of. You could go to any of those little bars in Bodo. It's a great spot to get away. Maybe if it's too hot, or you just want to get a bite to eat, or you want to get maybe a cocktail. Those are kind of the places that I would look at kind of disappearing to if you want to get away from the forts for a little while. Also, if you're on the other end of downtown by 10th Street and Main down that way, Barbarian. They're going to have recycled acts at its downtown location there on 10th Street, and it's going to be amazing. And Barbarian, also a cool spot to get away from everything from. Awesome beers, great service, awesome place. And if you're over towards Julia Davis Park and the main stage, and you just kind of duck out, maybe you don't like the act, whatever it is, you probably like the act. Maybe you just want to get a beer, just chill out, sit down. Well, I'm here to tell you the Ram is an amazing place to do that. Go check out the Ram downtown. Great beers, great service, good burgers. You're going to be fine. It's going to be really good. Also, another place that's kind of interesting, kind of fun. You wouldn't think, maybe if you're from out of town, you wouldn't think of going, but Whole Foods Bar after 4:00. They have the best selection of beers there. You can go and get an apple or get some fruit or whatever you need to recharge down there at Whole Foods and bring it upstairs to the bar. It's really great. You're going to love it. So make sure you try those places out if you want to kind of just duck away. And another good one, Hotel Renegade. They have a rooftop bar that is amazing. So that's going to also be down in that like 10th Street, Neuroluxy, maybe El Cora Shrine, that kind of area of downtown if you're down there. So make sure you check those out. Now the bands, I haven't heard very many of them. I tried to do a little cram session earlier tonight, and I got through a few of them. A lot of good stuff, a lot of awesome stuff. I heard some reggae in there. I heard some songs that I definitely had heard before from some bands that I knew. One that stuck out, Katie Tunstall, is going to be on the main stage, I believe. She's really good. I usually love all the hip hop acts. Like I usually go out of my way to, I go out of my way to see the rockabilly and the hip hop. And I'm not really that big of a rockabilly fan. I just like them live. So I remember Jenny Don't and the Spurs was a couple years ago. That was really fun. So any kind of rockabilly, any kind of hip hop, it's all going to be good. Plus the hip hop is usually something different for sort of the people that love all the other main stuff, that all the sort of alternative rock or prog rock or whatever. Also, and this is, maybe like a personal just thing for me, but this band Elder Blue that I keep hearing about, Elder Blue, awesome if you like prog rock, sort of a prog rock experience. I know they're going to be playing at Neurolux on the first night. They're going to be the last show there, and I think they're playing at El Cora Shrine as well. So make sure you check out Elder Blue if you like that sort of 70s prog rock. Those guys just rock. Also, let's see, what else do we have going on here? Oh, one of my favorite podcasts of all time, How Did This Get Made, is doing a live show, which should be a lot of fun. Check out tickets and everything. I think they're like $75. You can check that out on the Treefort website. And if you're going to look for other venues to hole up at besides the main stage, I know the main stage is kind of where everyone congregates, but if you're going to look at places other than the main stage, may I suggest Boise Brewing. Awesome location for Treefort. They're out on the street. There's a lot of room. The bands are usually local. They have a couple of different spots to get beers. They have some food now inside the restaurant. So a really cool place to just sort of hole up if you don't want to be at the main stage. Maybe it's Friday or maybe Thursday or maybe it's Sunday and you just want to chill out. Boise Brewing. And they have a little patio you can go sit down at. Really, really cool. I think if you find me anywhere this week, it will be Boise Brewing out in front of their place there. El Cora Shrine. Awesome spot. They have two locations at the El Cora Shrine. They have the main hall, and then they have the basement. Both cool. I think you'll like them a lot. The beers will be pouring there. Bartenders are super nice. I think you really like it there. Plus the Shriners are all there. Super nice guys and ladies and everything else. And Ocho's, sweet spot on the other side of downtown. This is going to be more towards 5th and Main, I think is where Ocho's is. It's right there across from the fondue place, whatever that place is called. And then finally, the Greyhound bus station. And Dave and I talk about it later, but Greyhound bus station is a sweet venue. You're right up close to the music. The beer's right there. Last year they had, I think, what's his name? Aaron and the guys from Breaking Bad had mezcal that they were selling out in a bus behind the parking lot there. Anyway, lots of good stuff. Lots of awesome venues. I really do love what they do, what Treefort does. They come in, they really do bust it out. Like all these venues they sound amazing. Boise Brewing, I know they do their own sound check there and everything. They sound great. Ocho's is going to sound amazing upstairs there at Ocho's is really cool. Greyhound bus station, like I said, you're right up close to the music and you got the beer line right there. That's really like one of my favorite ones is probably the Greyhound bus station. That's on kind of that weird part of downtown over there, kind of 11th and Bannock in that area. So make sure you check those things out. And if you have any other questions about Treefort, they have or the bands, or you want to hear something, or you want to just scope stuff out, Spotify has an excellent Treefort 2025 Treefort Musicfest 2025 list that you can go check out. That's what I was listening to before. So you can just hit that and it'll play like a mix. It's really cool. So check that out. For some of maybe people my age, right around my age, that don't know who all of these bands are, you can check them out right there on Spotify. So, and while you're doing that, go ahead and throw us a subscribe on there as well. Idaho Booze Podcast on Spotify as well. So we're going to be right back with Rob Harrelson. Bert's Brewing did something very interesting to me, maybe just to me, but their sales guy, Alan, who's a great dude, awesome salesman, went out there and he was able to, they all said Treefort went to them. Maybe Treefort did go to them. I'm sure they did. Treefort went to Alan and said, hey, you guys are brewing up some of the best beer in town. Why don't you do this year's beer for the festival? And you know what? We're going to have the story about that, plus a little bit more about what went into the beer and everything else with Rob Harrelson from Bert's Brewing right after this. Gas station food can be hit or miss, right? Not at Treasure Valley Chevron, TVC at Beacon Light and Highway 55 and I-84 at Gowan Road has all the snacks you need for a long road trip or just for the drive home. Jerky, candy, chips, sandwiches, cheese sticks, corn dogs. If you're craving it, TVC has it. Right now, get a free soda when you purchase a food boat at either TVC location. Want to win a box of jerky? Of course you do. Email the latest snack find at TVC to idahoboozepod@gmail.com and get a free box of beef jerky from Treasure Valley Chevron. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. I am on location. We are in the belly of the beast at Bert's Brewing. Man, I can see my car from here. I can see Bogus. You really do have a nice setup here, Rob.
We do. We're lucky. And we got some additional parking, which is even better.
Oh, my God. Yeah, the parking before was a little bit of a situation, wasn't it?
Yeah, they didn't like the 3 spots, but I think we've added 10 more. So
you guys had a little bit of a situation with the next door neighbors as well, too, right?
That is still going on.
Still ongoing.
The auto shop next door does not like parking, and you can expect a $200 to $250 booting of your car, which is
brutal. So we're here with Rob Harrelson, owner, CEO, operator, yada, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, of Bert's Brewing. And we're here to talk because this is our Treefort episode. So we're talking all about this beautiful little pale ale we have right here. What is this thing called, and what am I thinking about this thing?
So this is called Pure Imagination. It was named by our head of sales, Alan. It is a hazy pale ale, first hazy that we've ever done, and I don't expect it to be maybe a fully common thing. We've shied away from hazies in the past just because of quality concerns that we have with shelf life. This is a beer that has to be drank, in our opinions, within 4 weeks of package date. So we didn't see that there was an opportunity in the market just existing naturally to come up with a hazy, sell 15 barrels of that, and have it go through with a high level of confidence. But with this being focused more so into Treefort and it being in the lineup of core beers that are going to be served there, we felt a lot more comfortable, and so we did a double batch of that. So we ended up with about 55 half barrels, and so we're excited to have it. It's incredibly fresh. It was packaged on the 20th of March, so by the time people are enjoying it, it's less than a week old.
By the time I'm enjoying it, it's less than 3 days old.
Yes.
So I'm really liking it. It has a lot of nice flavor. I will review it later on in the show. But you guys should have been here 5 or 6 years ago. I was selling revision hazies, and they never got on the shelf. I would literally go to put them down, and some guy would come and swat and snap them out of my hand just like that.
Those are good problems to have.
Yeah. So you did a double batch of this hazy, the first ever hazy you guys have ever done, and it's probably a good opportunity to do a double batch because you have about 20 taps that you're going to be funneling this to for Treefort, right?
Yep.
Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so we were approached by Treefort early on in the process. They were looking for a primary beer sponsor and thought that we would be a great fit. So obviously we had some internal discussions and wanted to see if it was something that really made sense for us and that we were going to be able to handle. We're, I think, 16 months old at this point.
Yeah.
And so we're still early on.
It's amazing.
It
really is amazing.
Process. And it's not a small festival. It's not a small commitment to go in and take that all on top of just trying to handle standard market conditions and things like that. But we saw it as an opportunity that was just too good to pass up. We liked what Treefort was all about as far as bringing the community together, bringing something fun to the community, and something to look forward to every year. And so, any chance to be a part of it, and especially be a part of it in a pretty key way, it was a no-brainer.
If I may, I'd like to recreate that discussion that you guys had when Treefort approached you about doing their beer, and I'll just play all the parts if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, and I'll start with being Rob. Rob. I don't know. We're only 16 months old. Alan, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it. Dave, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it. Rob, I don't know. Alan, no, we're doing it. It's not even a question of if. We're doing it right now. Let's do it. Let's roll it out. Let's brew it. Dave, are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, let's do it. Rob, fine.
I think Dave and I were...
I'm going on vacation.
the most cautious on it.
Yeah.
Just from, we deal with the production schedule every day.
Yeah.
Alan's obviously, keyed into all of our inventories within distribution.
I was going to ask about this Allen-sized fist print in the table over here. Yes. Is that where he was literally pounding the table when this was happening?
He was very excited about the opportunity. And, I think it's fun to have people excited about. That's what you want.
For sure.
You don't want people looking at it, saying, well, maybe not.
We're going to make a hazy pale.
So it was all a lot of fun going through the process. And at various stages, we were learning what all went into it.
Yeah.
But we're super excited. We, I think are putting our best foot forward. I think we've got 3 great beers that are going to go in. So we're going to have our Pilsner available at all the main stage bars. PCH or Pacific Coast Hopway, our core West Coast IPA. That'll also be available, and then Pure Imagination. But on top of that, we're going to have our own beer garden there, which was something that we were really excited about because it gives us some flexibility to show off a little bit more of what we do. And then we're also taking on a fair chunk of space, and Sydney is designing and decorating with the help of Trademark, who we use for all of our label designs and merchandise and things like that. So
I'm having a hard time remembering another brewery having its own beer garden there. Is this the first time?
I think this is the first time.
Okay, congratulations.
And thank you. I could be mistaken, but I think in years past it's been a distributor taking on this kind of role. So they've taken it on and utilized it to showcase.
Yeah, because it's been basically Payette and Mother Earth have had that beer.
Yep.
As long as I can remember. I don't remember anyone else who did. I know Woodland did a thing one time where they did canning during Alefort. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Where they canned a bunch of stuff, and everybody got to drink freshly canned beer, which is something you and I have done, but I don't think a lot of other people have done that. So that was cool.
Oh, and that's a really cool.
So do you guys have anything planned like that? Any kind of event thing? Anything that we can, mark down on the calendar?
We don't have any huge event going on with it, but I think we've done a great job taking over the space. So there's going to be lots of covered seating. It's all decorated, and they did a great job with that. And then we're going to have, obviously, our beers, the core 3, and then we're going to have up, 8, so 5 additionals. But we'll be doing giveaways all weekend, so
nice.
You can stop by our booth. And
where's the booth?
So it's right by the Ag Pavilion. So actually, where main stage is, it's 2 stages. So we're smack in the middle, right by those restrooms. So not so much in the restrooms that you're going to be dealing with it, but you've got one stage on the left, one stage on the right, and then you've got us really straight in the middle.
Yeah, I think it was last year, they the second stage was like almost kind of a 90-degree angle to the. Is it still like that, where it's like you go to the right? If you're looking at the stage, you go to the right, and then you go kind of over, and it's right there. Is it still?
Yeah,
over
so
there?
they're kind of cockeyed just to avoid competing noise.
You don't.
So we'll see, how much competing noise we have, being in the middle. But I think it's just going to be a lot of fun, and the giveaways will be cool. Sydney and I are excited to be there. Alan will be,
Alan will be all over the place. He's gonna be so stupid busy.
We're gonna have to wrangle him to the tent.
Yeah, Alan, you need to take a minute off. Oh, I gotta. There's the Sankey.
Oh, he's hard at work right now. So
yeah, that's good. I'm so happy to hear that. That's awesome, and good for you guys for getting it. I think it's well deserved. It's also a nice way to break from tradition for Treefort, and I spelled that with a capital T and a lowercase f. In case anyone out there is wondering, that was how I spelled it when I said it. Now, who knows? Maybe later I might spell it with a lowercase t. I don't know.
It might get crazy.
I might get crazy. Who knows? I am having a hazy pale ale right now, and I'm enjoying life just talking to you about this thing because I'm so excited for your brewery. Now, what do you think this means kind of moving forward for Bert's Brewery?
Well, one of the talks that we, had leading into the yes or no was, we've got to be ready for it. And ready for it doesn't mean that, we can serve the beer and we're going to have inventory for it, but are we ready to put the time, effort, and capital in to make sure that it's not just another showcase or, another brewery going in, but we're taking it one step farther. And
not just you guys, but your distributor partner as well, right?
Yeah. And they've put a lot of work in. They're still relatively new to the market. I think 3 years in, right around.
What are they called again?
Scout.
That's right. Yeah. They're kind of new,
but they're a fantastic distributor.
Yeah.
Really, really focused on high-end craft.
I love their book.
It's a great book I've seen, and it's a book that, that's what drew us in from the start. We wanted to be a part of it, and still want to be a part of it, obviously.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So we're not breaking any news here?
No. We love our distributor.
Well, that is also breaking news.
That is breaking news.
If you're being truthful about that, then that is breaking news. Good for you.
No, it's a great relationship for us.
That was always a fun part of my job when I worked at when I had that job at the brewery. I was working with the distributor partners, and most of them were cool. Some of them weren't, but most of them were cool.
I don't think I've worked at a good amount of breweries and been around a lot of people in the industry, and I don't think anyone's described what we have with our distributor.
No,
they've really partnered with us.
It's awesome.
I mean, they've helped us grow this business tremendously.
Well, I got to feel like that you are their big local, right? Yeah. I mean, you've turned into that. You guys have, even since we last spoke, which was, I don't know, October or something like that.
Yeah.
You guys have grown by leaps and bounds. I've seen you expand into grocery stores, more off premise, even more on premise. I went to somewhere in McCall where they had 3 of your beers on tap.
Yeah. Tony was doing McCall. He's since moved over to, I think, Pocatello.
Send him back to McCall.
I know, but he put a phenomenal foundation. He's from there, but no, he's done the whole Scout team's done a great job leading with the local, leading with quality, and I think their 2 main ones are ourselves and Freem, and anytime you can be mentioned next to a great brewery like Freem, you gotta.
Well, let's see about getting a collab going with those guys.
That would be great.
Awesome brewery, and you guys have done a really nice job too, I think, of also sort of, this is something that is kind of high praise because for Idaho, it's difficult to be new and come here and be accepted like you guys have. Only Mother Earth I've seen kind of do it the same way. So you guys have done a great job with that. And talk about how you've sort of been able to, like we were just out in your tap room and there was a regular out there. You said hi to him and everything like that. How has that been kind of just becoming part of the community?
That part's been really the most enjoyable.
Yeah.
I mean, every time we go into the tasting room, whether it's, Sydney or I, or, especially for the staff members that are working behind the bar, they've built such a great community with the people that
also all new,
all the time.
Right? They all came up here with you guys pretty much, right?
Yeah. And we took 5, including Sydney and myself from Chapman, the last brewery we were at. So 2 of them work as our lead and full-time guys beer tending, and then we've got David obviously as our head brewer. So
it's just awesome.
And then if you're watching on video, you can see my wife walking by.
There's Sydney.
Sorry.
Oh, you don't have to apologize. Thank God you came in when you did. Things were getting very weird here. So let's talk more about the beer. I love talking about the beer. I know you're a brewer at heart, and so tell me all about the beer.
Yeah. So I mean, this is a really regional driven hazy pale ale. Super light. I mean, percentage wise, I think we're right around 5.5%. We use all Montana malt.
Oh.
And so they've been a great new partner for us. They do a really good job, small batch kind of stuff, small batch kilning, and a lot of versatility as far as input from us being translated into the product that we receive. So,
nice.
They've changed up things for us, which is a brewer's dream.
I'm giggling about how Dave is like, so I told you the Lovabond was supposed to be 32, and this is clearly 34. Like, come on, guys.
He goes back and forth with them a couple times a week, it seems, and it's all positive stuff. It's all meant to make us better. It's all meant to make them better in relation to
maltster in Montana. Huh? Cool.
Out of Butte, which is a relatively small city, so it's kind of a cool thing. And then hops, we Citra, which is from Yakima, but we got them all from Mill 95, and then Crystal from Gooding Farm, and then we used the British strain of Omega, and so. Well, this might be our first hazy here at Bert's. David's very well versed in making hazies.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time,
I'm sure at Chapman
from Bottle Logic, he made hazies all the time at Chapman. Right. And so having no shackles with this one, it's kind of our philosophy as far as recipe design and allowing David to just do what he does best. Yeah. So we try not to put shackles on ingredients that he can use or can't use, or try to put them in a corner of this is what we want the cost per barrel to be. I mean, all of those things can be fixed on the back end. All of them can be adjusted and fit in where they need to. But he does a great job of taking all that and putting the best foot forward always. Yeah,
so he probably already had a pretty good idea of what he wanted to do when he came up with this beer. Did you guys, how did that discussion go? Did Treefort have any input on that, or did you guys just come up with the hazy pale on your own?
No, so in years past they've had 3 main draft categories. So they have a light lager, which our Pilsner fit in really well, I think. An IPA, so it was kind of natural for us to put PCH into that slot. And then they always had a hazy pale ale. And that's where we had nothing in our book, no track record to show on that to say, yeah, we have a
Were you like, how about a Helles?
Yeah, they didn't like that one. They wanted a hazy.
What about a cherry smoked Helles?
They were open to hazy IPA. We liked hazy pale.
Yeah.
That's something that they had kind of,
especially if the weather's going to be nice. You don't know. You've only been here 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years.
We're going on
almost 3.
4 said.
Oh, 4. So maybe you do know Treefort can be either really, like right now the weather's gorgeous, and it's looking like it's going to be pretty good for this weekend. But man, I remember just a couple of years ago it snowed and hailed all during Treefort. So I think a hazy pale ale is a good way to go. It's not too heavy. It looks heavier than maybe it is because it's only, like you said, 5.5%. Yeah. That's what I always reach for at Treefort is I don't really go for like the big IPA. I like to go for that. Yeah, I always went for the Mother Earth beer or whatever they were doing. But I think it's a great little. A nice beer. You can definitely taste the Citra hops in there. They've come across very light and limey as opposed to what they could be. So I'm really excited about that. I think this is going to crush.
Yeah, the Crystal hops bring kind of a peachiness, so I think balances really well.
I'm just happy there's not Strata in it. No. I'm a little fucked out on Strata right now.
Yeah. No, with all of our stuff, we try to make it drinkable, and so the last thing that we want is someone to have one beer and kind of have to tap out. And so I think David did a great job on building a recipe that you can have 3 or 4 of, and
I could have 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Well, right now, maybe. Yeah. You guys have half a keg in there, right?
We do. 3/4.
3/4 of a keg? Yeah. Oh, I can take 10 of those.
Get through it.
That's awesome. And it's really, it's a great drinkable beer. So you guys have been here almost 4 years. You've had a chance, I would imagine, to go to Treefort. You guys are young and fun and love Pepsi and all that stuff. So I imagine you've got to go. What are some of the venues and stuff that you guys like to visit for Treefort when you're doing it?
So we've just been busy since we moved here, so we haven't really had an opportunity to go much. We went to Alefort last year. That was obviously our first year being able to have a beer there.
Okay.
So we definitely had some fun with that.
Yeah, Alefort's fun.
We walked around Treefort the first year that we came when it was still downtown. And that was a lot of fun too. But it seems like since then they've added a lot of venues. I mean, I'm sure Shrine was part of it always, but with Treefort Music Hall and Hap Lounge, I think
those are the 2 new ones.
To have something new and extra places to hang out and watch music and drink good beer.
Well, I hope I see you around some of those locations, because I know we usually one of my kids plays in a lot of them. He plays at the Shrine. He plays at Neurolux and stuff like that. So it's always nice to bounce around. And the one thing I do like is that there are quality beer options at all of them, because Treefort, with a capital T, does a great job of making sure that all of those options are at all their venues, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, they've been great partners, kind of going through it, and I think it's just a lot of fun to. Yeah, you want to be a part of it. You want to see it, and the other venues. Obviously, our primary focus for this year is on the main stage, and but you'll definitely see our beers, in Neurolux and Treefort Music Hall and Hap.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And are you guys going to stay open down here during the festival?
Yep. So we're open as normal. No live music or anything. I think most of the focus is going to be towards downtown.
Yeah.
Don't want to compete. But yeah, we'll be open all week and kind of enjoying the weather, and hope to see a lot of people stop by here as well.
Nice. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Are there any bands that are coming this year that you really want to see, and that you maybe poked Alan to, hey, give me some tickets?
We might have worked around to see Lilome on Sunday. Nice. Sydney likes them a lot, kind of instrumental. And then I'm excited to see Reckless Kelly too. But yeah, I mean, we're excited to just see new music. And
I'm nodding as if I know any of these bands. Yeah. I do not. Spoiler alert, I'm an old man. But I'm excited to see some of the bands too. I like Ferry to Nowhere. They're a good one. Fifth Pocket Jeans. They're good. I really like Dancing Shoe Winter. They're another favorite of mine. Can't wait to see them. So I'm very excited as well to see some of these bands that I've never heard of, but they're a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah. See, I don't know if they're real or not.
I made up all those.
Okay.
Yeah, those were all made up.
I was right then.
So, just to kind of talk a little bit more about Treefort and kind of what you guys, since this is the Treefort show. What other brewers are you going to have down at your very own little tent, I guess?
Yeah. So
beer garden.
We'll have
Bert's Beer Garden.
Yeah. We'll have our Pils, PCH, Pure Imagination, and then on top of that we'll have Good Call, which is our latest pale ale. We'll have Hall & Oates, which is an oatmeal stout. Weiss Baby, which is a wheat beer. I know I'm gonna miss one. Said, what am I missing?
Good Call.
I have that.
Bell Bottom.
Boogie. So that'll be in cans. That's our cherry sour.
Nice.
I think that's it.
The new one, the new cherry sour.
Yes.
Now that's a little bit different. You're going to be rotating that seasonally, right?
Yep. So that'll move 4 times a year. Once cherry ends, we'll go right into raspberry, which should be coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into, I think we're still planning to do orange guava, and then we're going to finish out the year with Marionberry. Nice. And we're also launching a seasonal West Coast can format. So it's something that we've been doing. We did Shag and Wagon, Ragtop, and Joyride. Mm-hmm. So those had 3 or 4 month stints. This year we just saw the response as far as kegs went, and wanted to offer something new in that can format too. So start of April, should be around the 7th that should be available. So we'll start with Shag and Wagon. Alyssa, who works at Trademark, does all of our labels, did a great job on the design for it.
Shag and Wagon, huh?
Yeah. So it'll be a little bit more malty than PCH. Okay. Right around 6.5%. Going to be a Northwest West Coast IPA.
Oh, okay. So maybe piney and resinous-y and stuff like that.
A little bit more of that than PCH.
Okay.
With more citrus forward.
Did Dave use crystal malt in this one? Holy cow.
Small amount of crystal malt. Oof. I think he used Crystal 10.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
He better be careful. He's going to lose his Southern California beer card if he keeps up with that stuff.
We just can't tell anyone.
No, we'll keep this. No one's going to listen to this. It'll just be between us. I'm really excited for you guys. I think it's awesome that you guys got the beer for Treefort. And, is there anything else going on with the brewery that you guys want to talk about right now that's happening, coming up, or anything like that?
I think the big ones for us are, obviously getting, these new SKUs moving and new formats going out. We'll be doing American Lager again. That'll transition into Canadian Lager. And then next year we'll release our Hellas in cans.
I really like your Hellas.
Yeah.
I would appreciate if that would be out
so we're going back to actually it'll be out pretty soon. So that's getting brewed. That got brewed today.
Nice.
So that should be out in about 5 weeks. Yeah.
Nice.
So only draft this time around.
Yeah.
But we kind of used the same opportunity earlier on with Canadian Lager to do a round draft only, work out whatever kinks we might have with it, or make any changes that we want before we reintroduce that as a seasonal can option.
Are you still going to be able to do Canadian lagers with the current sort of climate that we're in politically?
I think so.
Are you sure?
I hope so.
Has Doge showed up at all to tell you guys to knock it off or anything like that?
No, we've been left alone.
Oh, that's good. Well, we don't want to put a target on your backs or anything like that. But I mean, Canadian lager, that does sound kind of inclusive.
It's a good one. I think it's perfect for hockey season. So that should launch in October of this year.
All right. Well, can't wait for that. Can't wait for the Hellas, especially in cans. That'll be great. Rob Harrelson, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to having, I'm sorry, what's it called again?
Pure Imagination.
Pure Imagination at Treefort, at all the venues, at the main stage, at your beer garden, and a bunch of other stuff at Alefort as well. So good for you. Awesome job. And thanks so much for being on the show again. I appreciate it.
Of course. Appreciate the time.
All right. Cheers. It's not just the price of eggs that has gone up. The price of going out right now is crazy. Pint prices have never been higher, but you were smart. You went to BoiseBeerBuddies.com and picked up a Boise Beer Buddies card. You were saving up to 25% on your tab at bars, restaurants, wineries, and breweries all over the state of Idaho. Also, since you subscribe to the Boise Beer Buddies newsletter, you know when your favorite spots are having amazing events, specials, and discounts. If you haven't picked up your Boise Beer Buddies card, what are you waiting for? Go to BoiseBeerBuddies.com, use my promo code BOOZEPOD at checkout, and get 2-for-1 Beer Buddies cards. Be a buddy. Get your Boise Beer Buddies card today and save on your next night out all around the state of Idaho. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast with me, Steve Kuntz. Hey, we're going to have Dr. Bittercreek himself, Dave Roberts, on here to talk about Alefort in just a bit. I just wanted to share like a couple of different things. I don't know if I really have any stories from Alefort. We started it 2014, I think was the first year I did it. I'm not sure if that was the first year. We were in a big dome right where Hotel Renegade is now, downtown. And it was really cool. I mean, it was a nice chance. It was before they started all this aid to retailer stuff that Dave and I talked to here coming up. But we were able to a bunch of us that were in the local beer scene were able to kind of gather. We were able to try each other's beers a little bit and kind of bullshit. And it was a lot of fun. It was really just us. I can't remember any outside breweries really being there. Maybe Odell was there. Maybe Sierra Nevada was there. Someone's like that. 10 Barrel was definitely there. So like, it was a lot of fun. It was one of these things where I definitely looked forward to not looking forward to it, if that makes any sense, because it was a fuck ton of work. Oh my God, was it so much work? Plus, David had all these people out working for him that had all these rules and stuff. If you didn't have your badge showing, I'm sure it's all because of laws and stuff like that. I know, it wasn't personal, but there was this one time where me and another buddy from Sockeye, we were goofing around, and this girl came up and just read us the riot act. Woo, she gave it to us good. If you are out there today, Alefort girl that gave us the riot act in 2015 or 16, shout out to you, because that was amazing. You really tore into us. We're just a couple of guys, like, I don't know, 40-year-old guys sitting there and goofing off, getting drunk. And she gave it to us. So thank you for that. And thank you for all the great memories. Actually, I just want to take a second to talk about David a little bit before I bring him on, because David he's a really kind of instrumental dude in beer in Idaho, not just for Boise either, for the whole state. This guy hooked up with a guy named Rick Boyd, I believe that's correct. And him and Rick had this store or this restaurant called Brewforia. I'm pretty sure this is correct. Anyway, they had this Brewforia store, and they would, this was like a precursor to Beer 30 and some of the other craft beer, right around the same time as Brewers Haven. Brewers Haven back then was much more of a homebrew supply store. Anyway, David and Rick had this place, and they were doing shit nobody was doing. They were doing bottle shares. They were doing rare bottle openings. They were doing specialties on tap. They were doing all sorts of fun stuff. And it was a really cool, this was actually before my time. I got here right as Brewforia was ending. Actually, they still had their Overland joint, but I was out in Southeast, so I didn't see it as much as I would have liked to. Anyway, David, really instrumental in getting some festivals going in the state. So him and Rick started the first festival up in McCall, I believe. They also were sort of instrumental in growing the Idaho Falls Fest. I'm pretty sure that's correct. And now David sort of went from Rick to Dave Crick, who is, we'll get to later, but Dave Crick, who is sort of the godfather of beer for Idaho, the owner of Bitter Creek Ale House and Diablo and Sons and Red Feather. That whole building there on 8th Street is all Dave Crick. And David Roberts, it's just as much David Roberts now as it is Dave Crick, really. I mean, David Roberts is his right-hand man by all accounts. He basically, I think he was given the keys to do Diablo and Sons the way that he wanted to do it. So I'm pretty sure Diablo and Sons is basically David's restaurant. And then Bitter Creek is Dave Crick's restaurant. And the reason why I wanted to bring him on for this wasn't just so that I could talk about Alefort, but also to kind of go over what the past of Alefort, because it was really cool what we were doing. And we were doing something kind of different. I don't think any of the other music fests had a beer fest alongside with it that ran parallel to it. And then we started introducing food, and then we started introducing like nail pulls and some other stuff. There was some other stuff we talk about with David that you guys are really going to think is pretty cool. There was some, I'm sure you all remember it if you were there. Anyway, bringing David on right now to talk about Alefort, to talk about the exciting, fun changes he has this year for Alefort. They're going to be really cool. I think you guys are really going to be excited to hear from him. And I also just want to tell you that for whatever reason, David he doesn't come in so hot on this one. It's almost like he's one of those stranded astronauts up there on SpaceX. His cell phone was all over the place. Maybe it was my internet connection. Maybe it was his cell phone. I have no idea. But there are some technical difficulties here. I'll try to work through them best I can in the edit. But I promise you're going to love this interview with Dave Roberts in this Treefort Musicfest edition of the Idaho Booze Podcast. Here's Dave Roberts. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. With me on the show today is none other than Dr. Bitter Creek himself, David Roberts. David, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And this is our very special Treefort edition of the show. And I spelled that with a capital T and a lowercase f for anyone wondering out there.
One word.
And we have, one word. Yep. I did not say Music Fest after. I should have said Music Fest after. That is my bad. So we have you on today because you are King Alefort. And it is your week to shine. So, David, please tell us all about what's going on. What's new with Alefort this year? What are you guys doing? What sort of tricks and surprises do you have for us under your sleeves over there at Alefort?
Well, I think that the big difference for Alefort this year is kind of like a change that actually isn't about Alefort, which is that it used to be the case that the token system, whether you love it or hate it, was applicable to the entire park footprint of Treefort. So you bought all of your drinks at the main stage with tokens. And this year, the tokens are unique to Alefort. So I think that in its own kind of triggered the Alefort team, which is a big team. I know you introduced me as King Alefort, but it's really about all the people who are doing it. It kind of triggered us to want to get back to our beer fest roots and make it more and more like a traditional beer fest and less like this just big beer garden for the Treefort main stage. So, we kind of, rather than feel all reluctant and bashful about how we had the tokens, we really embraced the token. And we've kind of looked at the things that have done the best for us the last couple of years. And kind of the thing they had in common is that they were more ceremonial or ritualistic in their how people engaged with them. And so we're trying to do more things that are like that, but that aren't just straight out group binge drinking, wherever that's worth.
So sort of taking it back to when you started with it, I would say then. So you're going to have let's say you'll have cask openings and you'll have some bottle shares, or you'll be doing stuff like that. That's going to be kind of by the hour. Whereas I felt, you're right. The last couple of years, it was more just kind of a beer garden. So now you're trying to get back to where it's more of an event focused sort of fort.
Yeah. So there's a pretty robust schedule of programming in the Alefort Lounge that has people talking about specific beers or specific ideas within the industry. And then some other stuff that's a little bit more crossovery. So for example, we have a burlesque show that is
Nice.
done by a winery owner. But then we also have a music show.
Is it Joe Schnurr? Is it Joe Schnurr from Cinder?
Yep.
poet
exactly.
laureate to the Idaho Booze Podcast?
Nope, not Cinder. It is
Which winery?
Trey Bush from. I'm not prepared to. It's Trey Bush from. I forget what that winery is called. It might be like Trey Bush Wines, right? Jackie, who is partner Amphora, total badass. She does all of the wine programming, and this is one of the things I think makes Alefort so special is that the people who do it all do it because they care deeply about what they're bringing to Alefort, and are also knowledgeable about it. So and the other example of that is we have Molly Ledbetter from Meriwether, who is the state of Idaho's only certified sommelier, which is like as sommelier is to wine, sommelier is to cider. And she does all of our cider programming. And then, of course, we have Ryan and Heather from Treefort Nampa.
The prince and princess of Alefort, I would call them.
For sure. They do all the beer programming. So all the people who are, bringing products and making decisions about what's going on Alefort's menus are people who interact with these beverages professionally all year long. And so I really do believe that it's like a bunch of expertise and knowledge and know-how that ends up on these menus.
Awesome. It sounds like a lot of fun with a lot of different things. Yeah, I mean that's one thing that we always like about Alefort, right? Is all the options and all the fun. Maybe sometimes you get some beers from some breweries that you wouldn't get on their tap list normally and stuff like that. Is there anything like that we're looking at this year? Maybe some special kegs or some special openings that we're looking at for local breweries or maybe breweries around the mountain region?
So Ryan and Heather, they worked closely with a bunch of breweries, regional and local, to produce beers that would only be available at Alefort. Now, we both know that there's some weird legal things around exclusivity in the context of alcohol, and I think everywhere but the state of Idaho. And so I'm sure you'll eventually find them in other places, but they're produced in limited quantities. And so your best bet at finding them for sure is at Alefort. That includes, I think it's 8 different IPAs, and then there's 3 different lagers that are going to be in the light and crispy section this year's Alefort that you won't be able to find anywhere else. And then some of our other more ritualistic programming that I think I'm really excited to see how people interact with is the Chuggy Bar, which is kind of what it sounds like, which is a menu and it's not just, I don't want to give it away, but it's the menu, it's not just about what's on the menu, but it's about the menu itself. I think that it will elicit some fun interaction from the people who see the menu and then order off of it. I think that them ordering their beverage off of the menu won't stop. They're going to continue to interact with that programming after they've gotten their beverage. And then we also have, again, embracing the token, kind of like a randomized game that when people use their token, they will get some sort of offering that is the creme de la creme, interesting stuff. So, rare and vintage bottles of barrel-aged beer, ciders, cool sparklings that Jackie's picked out for us, and then maybe even some other more playful options on the menu. And it will change every day just because all the stuff that's going to be at that bar or that game is limited availability. So we just have to cycle through what we have. Sorry, I'm being a little bit
at the Chuggy Bar.
And
no, you're good. You're doing great.
But
and the game is next to it.
I don't want to ruin any surprises. It's supposed to be fun.
Believe me, David. David, we're okay with cryptic here. We're good with that. Cryptic is one of the love languages of the Idaho Booze Podcast. So don't you worry one bit about being cryptic. You're just fine. And so as far as some of these, as far as some of these, the menu goes, is the menu shaped like a beer bong? Can we rule that out right now, or
you can't rule anything out? No.
Yeah.
No, and you can't rule out any what are those words where you take other words and combine them together? You any word variant that includes bong in it, you can't exclude that either at this point.
Okay.
In the context of beer bong, not any other bong.
Sure. Right. Well, this isn't godforsaken Oregon. I mean,
yeah.
We're still Idaho.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like you and your team have really gone out of the way this year to kind of bring some of the more spontaneity and some of the more fun back to Alefort. And so what is this going to mean for people at Treefort? I mean, does it mean that they're going to have to focus just on getting getting tokens just for Alefort, as opposed to, like you said, the last couple of years, tokens were kind of used all over the place. Now they just have to get them there. And is Alefort going to be in the same place it was last year, right? Kind of in the middle of the park there.
It is in a similar overall location in that it occupies that western half of the park next to the art museum. But it is different in that we have kind of rearranged and pushed all of it to be close to that thoroughfare to, I think, create a more inviting to give it a little bit more curb appeal. Yeah, and then I think we've also moved it so that the food is much closer to the Beer Fest part. So it used to be that all the food programming that was unique to Alefort was in the Alefort Lounge, and the Alefort Lounge was separated. Now they are conjoined, and the food that is specific to Alefort is going to be the thing that separates the two. And so it'll be super close to you. You're getting your tokens, you're seeing the food, you're in the beer lines, you're next to the food. Because the food is always meant to be, the food for me is one of the parts that I really enjoy working on because of the challenge of it. And the challenge is not just the logistics of executing food in the park, but also the challenge of proving that we can provide broadly appealing menu items that are locally sourced in March. Because I feel like I've talked to a lot of really smart food people, and I always say, oh, let's do this cool food idea. I want to focus on local vendors and local ingredients. And they say, you're crazy. There's no way you can serve people local food in March. And yet, last year we did the Poutine Palace, where every single, we were punching fries on site, blanching them, and then the next, cooling them, and the next day serving them. But, at the Poutine Palace, every single ingredient that was on the menu was sourced from a local farm. And so this year, similar thing. We've got the Pretzel Palace, which is from Acme. So again, what do people want at a beer fest? Definitely pretzels. What is a thing that is a ritualistic or ceremonial part of Beer Fest? Pretzel necklaces. They've got a fun take on a pretzel necklace this year. These ones are different, but yes. And, it's going to be an emphasis on local food. We have on Saturday and Sunday a biscuit brunch where it's going to be biscuit sandwiches, but it's eggs from McIntyre Farm, cheese from Ballard Family Dairy. The biscuits are going to be made by The Modern. All of the pork is from Snake River Farms. So it's, again, just proof to me that we can spotlight local food in a way that doesn't have to be snooty or snobby or exclusionary. It can be broadly appealing foods that people want all the time. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds awesome. Are there some other restaurants and stuff that are participating in the food that you can talk about or that you'd like to talk about?
Yep. Red Feather and Bitter Creek are doing the Harm's Hot Chicken Kitchen, which is going to be fried chicken sandwich variant. So there's a Korean barbecue fried chicken sandwich, a classic Nashville hot chicken sandwich, and then the one that I think I'm the most excited about is the Szechuan pepper. So the menu is organized in heat levels where it's sort of spicy for the Korean barbecue, pretty spicy for the Nashville hot, and then it kind of changes gears into very tingly for the Szechuan. And I just think that, when you're at a beer fest, especially one like Alefort that includes a bunch of different wines and a bunch of different ciders, it's really fun to be able to have your palate be taken to all of the different places that a palate can go. And tingly, Szechuan, that sensation that is not just spicy, but kind of numbing is, I think, it's a fun part of the palate to introduce into the beer fest environment, I think.
What do you think would be the best way to sort of stop that tingle once that starts happening? What's the best, what flavor beer do you think? Because I have a couple of different opinions about that, but what do you think?
I'm going to guess that it would need to be sour because you'd probably need some acid and carbonation to scrub that off your palate is my guess. but I don't know if you can stop the tingle. I don't know if it's like spicy.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Szechuan. We have been known to do some hot pot over here at the Kuntz household, and that includes a lot of Szechuan. And I lean into it. I go IPA. I go octane. I like to lean into it, just like with Indian food. Same way. I lean into it. I want it. If I'm going for Szechuan, I want that. I want the tingle. I want the burn. So I lean into it, and
from an intensity perspective too, right? Like if you're going to have that intense sensation, you need another intense like flavor to kind of match it. Otherwise, let's be muted.
What is it? Faramir or whatever that triple IPA Barbarian makes. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I'm going. This sounds awesome, man. And so who else is going to be there? Are you going to have a Diablo and Sons component as well? Or are you going to have some tacos? What else are you going to have out there for food?
The next one is the Basque Market doing paella on Saturday. So they, in the past, have only done it once. And it just sells out too quick. And so this year it's happening 3 times. I think it's 1, 4, and 7. And
they're bringing that giant like timpani lid, the huge pan, the giant like hubcap thing.
Yep, totally. So they just like make that huge thing, and it just smells so good and looks so good. And then at the same time, they have their barrel that they squirt the cider out of for the choach, which is like, again, a communal way for people to like enjoy beverage that is like, and I keep alternating here, right? Like we've tried to put a bunch of things on the menu and access a bunch of things that are not snooty or like, we talked a little bit before we got started about how beer has changed a lot. And I think a lot of what that has changed is like, it's less serious now, or like, I haven't thought of how to verbalize it yet. Right. But it's like, I feel like people are much less interested in the parts of beer that were more like,
yeah, I know what you're saying. It's not as granular as it used to be. It's not, people aren't so far into the weeds on it now as they used to be. I think it's because of people like us that have just kind of, we know all that stuff. No, we didn't ruin it.
We made it unappealing and exclusionary.
I know you didn't ruin it because you had the greatest tap list in Boise for the last 25 years or whatever. But no, we didn't ruin it. We just made it more difficult than I think it maybe needed to be sometimes. And now people are gravitating more towards like, crispy lagers and stuff like that. So, when we were really into barrel aged beers and everybody was kind of into stouts and all that stuff, maybe that'll come back. I mean, I'm fine with it coming back. I like to get granular, but more often than not, like I was telling you before, I'll tuck into a Pilsner and I'll be happy as a clam. I don't need to go for the big barrel aged stout or anything like that anymore. I think just people are getting older and their palates are sort of kind of regressing back to the mean a little bit, as it were.
Regressing, but I also think that it kind of like, what makes it fun, right? Like, is it fun to flex your vocabulary, or is it fun to enjoy responsibly alcoholic beverage with your friends? And I think that the more that I think about which version of that appeals to me, it's the latter version. But that being said, I don't ever want to like reduce it only to drinking. And so I think things like choach for me, it's appealing, it is a cultural context, right? Like it is a ceremony that is about something that's like existed for a long time. It's bigger than us, and it's unique to Boise. Sorry to ramble on there and interrupt.
I love it. And I love that. I love when they do that on the street. No, you're good. You're all good. So yeah, but I was just going to kind of piggyback onto your point there, because it is a good point that, I mean, we can stretch our vocabulary a little bit, but we can also have fun with it. I mean, no one's ever accused any of us of not also having fun. And I think the biggest thing about when you go back to some of these lighter beers and getting away from some of the barrel aged stuff is, how do you want to leave the beer fest? Do you want to leave on 2 feet with everything intact, or do you want to leave in an ambulance? So I mean, I go back to thinking about some of the beer fests that I attended with certain breweries, especially in Wyoming, that would bring some really big stuff. And it was always sort of a barrel shoot to see who would be the sloppiest by the end of the night. And it wasn't always a good time afterwards.
And that was
certainly not the next day.
Something that we had to consider and ask ourselves when we were talking about, like, okay, how do we get back to our roots of being a beer fest versus a beer garden? And a lot of it was like the token system versus all you can drink. Because I feel like, the hallmark of many beer fests is that it's a flat fee and you drink as much as you can. And that was how Alefort was the first year. And I think we had to kick out like 15 people. We switched the next year to tokens, and I think we've kicked out 2 since then in 12 years with much more attendance.
I'm trying to think, was the first year in a giant tent?
It was a dome.
It was in the dome. That was the first year.
Uh-huh.
Okay, was the second year in the giant tent? One
Yep.
of them was in a giant tent. Okay, yeah, the dome. I do remember the dome. I do remember it being all you can drink, and I do remember having to kick people out. And that's not fun. Nobody likes to do that.
No, it ruins it. And
yeah,
like
so 2 people since you've gone to tokens?
Probably, maybe 3, but barely any, because it just, that's awesome. Think, when people have paid a flat fee, I think that there is, unfortunately, a whole new calculus that enters it for many people.
That calculus is, I'm going to get my money's worth, and my money's worth is 40 beers.
Yeah, I mean, I no longer have
calculus.
I no longer have to worry about, moderating because I have a limited resource. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I can't drink this one too fast because I only have this many tokens left, or I don't want to spend.
Yeah, and they're not going to run out of beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, the token system's good. I'm happy to hear that you're kind of getting back to that, to the roots a little bit. I did the last time, I think last year when I went, I thought it was cool. I mean, you had awesome beers, but I did kind of miss that sort. I missed the food aspect of it because the food was all the way across the thing in a separate like area. And I kind of miss talking about beer too. I didn't see very many reps there and stuff like that. So what about reps? You going to have some more reps there? Are you rolling with volunteers as well? Or how's that going to work out?
Well, it's just such a strange thing because like and I'm not sure if it is, because it's different depending on whether or not they're talking about spirits versus wine versus beer, whether or not the rep can be there and pouring. But, the city is really clear with us that they interpret having the reps interact with the actual beverage as aid to retailer. And so the reps can't actually pour the beer. And I think the other thing for us, and we've been back and forth on it a number of times, is like we want to include as many people as possible, which means that most breweries only have 1 beer there. And we've gone a different route before where we're like, okay, we're going to reduce the number of breweries we have because we want to make participation in this event really meaningful for every brewery that participates. Because to most breweries that are at Alefort, small independent breweries, it's a business with like tight margins and it's difficult. And to have a rep be there for, because unlike other beer fests where it's like a 1 4-hour session or 2 4-hour sessions over 2 days, we're open for 9 hours, like 4 days. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask.
And they're not going to know when their beers are on tap, right? Because you're rotating everything, right?
We don't rotate. We try to keep it static from the beginning to the end.
Oh, everything's so static. Oh, okay.
That's still just a lot. So the reps are always invited. The reps do get some perks for coming. But it's just really difficult for us to ask, like, all right, rep, you got to stand next to your beer and be prepared to talk about it for, because like that's those people's jobs and they like weekends. And, most small independent local breweries I know aren't like ready to shell out a bunch of overtime for, you know what I mean? It's like, so we try to be respectful of the resources of our partners, but also encouraging them to participate, if that makes sense.
Well, as someone who spent 3 or 4 Aleforts doing just that, I can say, yeah, it's probably better that they're not there for the whole time. But it would be cool, like if maybe in the future you guys could do like an hour or sit down, like they do kind of like a Great American Beer Fest where they do sit downs and stuff like that. I think that would be a neat little aspect to add to it. Maybe some sort of talking component, kind of maybe to slowly reintroduce the granular aspect of beer back into it, and maybe make it a little bit more informative for some people. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah,
I
can totally see that. I mean,
but it sounds. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, I think that is a really fun idea.
Yeah, I'll moderate it if you want. I'll go out there and I'll, here's Derek from Odell. Derek, get up here.
I mean,
do us a twirl.
Always our number one challenge in coming up with programming is making sure there's somebody who's going to like nurture it and love it and see it in like its execution from the beginning to end. Because sure. I mean, for most of the people who interact with our little part of the Treefort kingdom, it's a labor of love. So
for sure. So
and
you've been a
some
part
moving parts to make it fit in.
Yep. So you've been a part of Treefort or Alefort or whatever now for, I don't know, 8 years, maybe 9 years, something like that.
13.
Has it been that long? 13. Damn.
Yeah.
So Treefort when it first started was a pretty good sized music festival. It wasn't like, it wasn't ever very small, but now it seems like there's a jillion forts, there's a jillion things to do, and you're still carving out Alefort. Have things gotten more difficult for you with Alefort as the festival's gotten bigger and bigger, or have things gotten a little bit easier for you? Have you found yourself getting more resources and stuff like that?
I mean, I think that the most difficult change for me has been the move to the park. There's just something about like solid ground that makes it much easier to execute a festival with this many moving parts, and like some of the things in the past that I feel like had made Alefort feel a little bit more unique or special, like the nail pull where we were actually bringing in barrels, or the live canning where we were trying to share the experience that, like, I mean, I don't know if insiders is the right word for it, but like people who are in the industry
when
who get
Woodland canned.
Yeah. Yep. Barley Browns did it the year after that. And it's like, as people who work in and around the industry,
cool.
We've had the joy of like,
I remember that. That was cool. There is nothing quite
line.
like getting a fresh can of beer right off the.
Yeah.
And sorry, your phone keeps cutting in and out, so I'm just trying to fill in.
Sorry. We were able to bring that experience to people at Alefort, but there's no way we're going to get a canning line on the grass in the park. You know what I mean? And so that has probably been the biggest challenge. I feel like the other big challenge for me personally is that I think that one of the secret strengths of Treefort has been that we have always been able to take things that existed, that people, for decades, that people walked right by and never thought about it. Well, I don't know where I cut off, but I think the thing I was suggesting is that in the past, I feel like one of the strengths of Treefort's been able that we take things that people walk by every day and never notice and transform them into something that like you couldn't have imagined, and examples of that would just be like the area where the main stage used to be was an empty lot next to near like condemned building on like the weird side of town. And, after that, it was like the Greyhound for us, right? Like we transformed the Greyhound and it's still got all this cool art on it that it didn't have before. And since then has been turned into a venue for underground film. And I just think the challenge for me is that the park, like the immensity of the park is, we're just not going to transform the park from being the park to something you didn't expect because it's just so big and it's the park. It's a huge park. And so I think that's a challenge too, is like,
yeah, but you guys do a pretty good job though.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
I felt like last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, maybe whenever it was that I went last, maybe it was last year, that you guys had a really cool area. I mean, you had that nice hillside where you could sit and kind of hang out. You had, when it wasn't raining or snowing or whatever. Yeah. And you had all the food trucks kind of lined up right there, right by the beer. I don't know. I think you've done a pretty good job. Also, the part that we used to have for Alefort is now the Renegade Hotel.
Yes.
So that makes it difficult
for sure
to go back.
Yeah, there's definitely no going back.
But yeah.
But it's just like finding that next thing that we get to.
They're a nice group over there at the Renegade, but I don't know if they're going to let us do that.
No, probably not. It is weird to sometimes every once in a while when I'm cycling past there be like, man, that's the side of 7 Aleforts or whatever.
Every single time I go by there, I'm like, that used to be a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I mean, it sounds like you've done the Lord's work again with Alefort. Sounds like you've put together another exciting sort of program. I'm really stoked to see what you guys are going to do there. I know we're going to make it down for at least one night. So I'm excited to come and check it out and see Ryan and Heather and everybody else down there. So David Roberts from Bitter Creek, where all are you from now? Woodland? You're doing some stuff with Woodland. You've got a pretty busy dance cart these days.
And then the Treefort part too. And I appreciate, I've had the opportunity to shout out Ryan, Heather, Jackie, and Molly. And, they get associated with a lot of kind of the more like visible and sexier parts of Alefort, which is all the beverage programming. But it has to be said that it couldn't be done without the people who do all the like nuts and bolts stuff.
Well, as you could probably tell, we were having some technical difficulties there. My usually reliable 28.8 baud modem is crapping out on me tonight, which is unfortunate because David is such a good dude and does have a lot to say, and he knows a ton about the local beer scene, about Alefort in particular. So really sorry to David for having to cut out early, and I really hope that everybody's able to get down to Alefort and check out all the hard work he's done and see just everything he's done, because he really does an awesome job with it. So David, thanks a ton for being on the show. The Idaho Booze Podcast is brought to you by Warren Reserve Cocktail Company. With bitters and cocktail syrups made right here in the Gem State, you would expect a little dash of home, right? With Emmett Cherry Bitters, you get just that. Each dash of Emmett Cherry Bitters tastes just like the real thing because it is made from real Emmett cherries. Add a couple dashes to an old-fashioned, vodka martini, or Manhattan to give your cocktail the authentic taste of the Gem State. Get Emmett Cherry Bitters at warrenreserve.com, and don't forget to use my promo code IdahoBooze25 at checkout to get 15% off any order over $40. That's Idaho Booze 25 at checkout. Give your cocktails a taste of Idaho with Warren Reserve Bitters at warrenreserve.com. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. It's time for Friday Night Pints. Just a couple to get to, and one very big one that you guys are all going to enjoy this week at Treefort. It's Bert's Brewing Pure Imagination Hazy Pale Ale. This little 5.5% beauty of a beer. This is Bert's first hazy, which is insane if you think about it. I couldn't believe it when Rob told me that. Your first one? What do you mean? Knocked it out of the park. It's so good. Super hazy, really kind of on the darker side of yellow with a nice white head. Drinks just, it has a really, actually let's start with the aroma. The aroma, like, just like he was saying, like kind of peach. There's also some lime in there, some lemon, some very nice like citrus. It's just a really nice, well-rounded nose on that beer. And then when you drink it, you get all that in the flavor as well. It's very citra hop forward, I would say. Very lime, very lemon, sort of that not Sprite flavor, but the lemon lime, like fresh lemon, fresh lime, and then a little bit of that kind of stone fruit in the background. But really, just a nice, refreshing pale ale from our friends at Bert's, and you wouldn't expect anything different. Pure imagination. Give it a try while you're out at Alefort or Treefort or any other fort, because you're going to see it everywhere. So go ahead and try it. It's a great beer. You're going to love it. Perfect for this, I think this week where it's going to be a little bit warmer and people will want something they can crush. And this beer definitely at 5.5%. Crush away. What else do we have? Well, I made a stop at 10 Barrel and tried a couple of their new IPAs. One of them, Danny Kong IPA. This is a really nice, like sort of West Coast style IPA. Strawberry, guava, fruit punch right there on the nose. And it's that kind of sugary fruit punch, which we like in IPAs right now. Really tasty. And then in the flavor, you get all that as well. It just drinks really big and bright and hoppy. A really nice IPA from 10 Barrel. I haven't been there in a while. They have a new brewer, and the beers I had at least were pretty tasty. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you're looking for somewhere to duck out during Treefort, why not 10 Barrel? Give this beer a try. 6.5%, 6.4, 40 IBU. That's on tap at 10 Barrel. And then Camp Coldie was their cold IPA. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if I got Camp Coldie. I ordered Camp Coldie. Camp Coldie was on my receipt, but this beer tasted exactly like Danny Kong. So the one I ordered was supposed to be a 5% 50 IBU cold IPA. I was thinking more on the sort of bitter. Some of those cold IPAs are kind of bitter, but this one was not. It tasted just like Danny Kong. I think they just poured me another Danny Kong. But I'll tell you what, if it was a Camp Coldie, it was delicious and just as good as Danny Kong. So I think they were both really good. All right. Well, that's going to do it for Friday Night Pints. We're going to come right back with a community calendar, Treefort style, and we're going to wrap things up, tell you what's coming up next week right here on the Idaho Booze Podcast. It's not just the price of eggs that has gone up. The price of going out right now is crazy. Pint prices have never been higher, but you were smart. You went to BoiseBeerBuddies.com and picked up a Boise Beer Buddies card. You were saving up to 25% on your tab at bars, restaurants, wineries, and breweries all over the state of Idaho. Also, since you subscribe to the Boise Beer Buddies newsletter, you know when your favorite spots are having amazing events, specials, and discounts. If you haven't picked up your Boise Beer Buddies card, What are you waiting for? Go to BoiseBeerBuddies.com, use my promo code BoozePod at checkout, and get 2-for-1 Beer Buddies cards. Be a buddy. Get your Boise Beer Buddies card today and save on your next night out all around the state of Idaho. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. I am your host, Steve Kuntz. Hey, lots going on this week on the community calendar. I did want to highlight a couple things. Our good friend Adam from Alliteration Ales is opening his beer/book store, or book. I don't know what it is really. Do you go there to buy books? Do you go there to sell books? Do you go there to read books? I don't know. It's a bookstore and a brewery concept. So I'm looking forward to checking it out. I tried to go by today. It told me I couldn't come in, so I didn't go in. But that opens on March 28th, so check that out. It's on, it's right where that Women in Steel building is, on Chinden in Garden City, literally a stone's throw from Bert's Brewing. So the next thing, Belmont, this place we talked about last week, Belmont Brewhouse, got a cool new sign. Congrats to you guys at Belmont. Sign looks great. Would be happy to come in and try you out at some point. You can use your Boise Beer Buddies card, receive 10% off everything when you hit that place up. What else is going on this week? Just a little thing called Treefort Musicfest. Tickets are still available. You can go to treefortmusicfest.com, get your tickets there. You can also check out all the news. You can check out the schedule, all the forts. Let's look at the forts. Why don't we? Let's take a look and see what other forts there are. We know about Alefort. We don't have to talk about that. David talked all about that. There's one called Art Fort. I knew an Art Fort. I think he knows who I am. So Art Fort, if you're listening, they have taken your name and they've made it a fort. Drag Fort. That sounds like a lot of fun. Maybe give that one a try. Bring your weird uncle to that one. Drag Fort. Comedy Fort, I think would be really good. I don't know what sort of comedy we're looking at here. You never do know with Treefort. The comedy could be, it looks like it's going to be like stand-up comedians. It always does say diverse lineup, so I guess that means there's just going to be like improv, stand-up, and it says storytellers. Okay, careful with those storytellers. Some of those guys get a little out of control. How Did This Get Made is going to be on March 28th on Friday. That is going to be awesome. $75 a ticket, I believe. Rory Scovel is headlining Comedy Fort this year. He's great. If you haven't seen him, he's awesome. So make sure you check that out. That's going to be somewhere around Comedy Fort, I guess. That's what we're looking at for Comedy Fort. All right, let me check that out. Okay, what else we got here? Kid Fort. I don't know if anyone listening to this really cares. Skate Fort. I'm into that. Let's see what's going on at Skate Fort. Skate Fort is a celebration of skateboarding. And there's going to be roller skating. So you can check that out. Skate Fort when you're out and about. Yoga Fort, of course. Tried and true Yoga Fort. We all love Yoga Fort. The first year I went and did Yoga Fort, and I couldn't walk for about a week and a half. So kudos to you, Yoga Forts. Lots of good forts to check out. You can check that again at treefortmusicfest.com/forts. You can also go to treefortmusicfest.com/lineup. You can see all of the headliners and everybody else. Looks like, Remy Wolf, Sophie Tucker, Shaky Graves, lots of good stuff. Man, just a lot of cool. Hot Mulligan. I know my brother-in-law is excited to see them. Built to Spill, always here. They're from Boise. Jessica Pratt should be good. I'm really loving all of this stuff I'm seeing for the lineup. It all looks really cool. Hines, Josh Ritter and the Royal City Band, I think was here last time. Let's see, who else? There's some hip-hop acts. Really excited to see that. Like I said before, Lalam, really good. I think they're from LA. Katie Tunstall. Just a lot of good stuff to see this week. And again, use that Treefort app too. The Treefort Music Fest app is awesome. You can plan out your whole day on that, and your significant other can't ignore it. So it's great both ways. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up now. Thanks to, are you kidding me? David Roberts. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Awesome to talk to him. I always like talking to him. I do. He's a great dude. I just love talking to him. Rob Harrelson from Bert's Brewing. Congratulations, man. Congratulations to Bert's Brewing, David and Alan and everybody here. Sydney. God, congratulations to everybody over there for getting this year's official beer of Treefort Music Fest, the Pure Imagination. Just an awesome beer. Great guys. Really excited for them and what's coming in the future. Thanks for being on the show, Rob. Really appreciate it. Next week, baby, Dave Crick is coming on the show. Dave Crick, he's the godfather of Idaho beer. He owns all of 8th Street. He owns Bitter Creek. He owns Red Feather. He owns Diablo and Sons, and he's going to be on my show. And we're going to talk all about Bitter Creek. We're going to talk about all about Red Feather. We might get into Woodland Empire. I don't know, but I'm excited to interview him. He's a great guy. We go back a long way, so I'm excited to talk to him. So for everybody else out there, I hope that we have a lot of listeners who are new, who are just here to check out Treefort and check out my show, because that's why really I wanted to do it, was to get in your guys' earballs. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to everyone else for listening and subscribing. You can subscribe on Substack, idahobooze.substack.com. You can catch me on Spotify, on YouTube, on Apple Pods, pretty much everywhere you can get a podcast. You can find the Idaho Booze Podcast, and I recommend that you do. And, go ahead and drop us a line. Tell us how we're doing, idahoboozepod@gmail.com. Let us know how we're doing. Keep me honest, if for nothing else. So for everyone that was on the show today, David Roberts and Rob Harrelson, I'm Steve Kuntz saying good day and good forting, everyone.